In the video we just saw, the officer only took approximately 15 seconds to talk about any additional training he had. You want to make sure that you use this time to elaborate at great length the experience and knowledge of your officer. Remember, this is your show. When you're a prosecutor, this is your stage, and your officer is your shining star. So don't cut that short just because you might think it's not important or that it's boring. You want your jury to be inundated with information that that officer has received with regards to DUI investigations. So let's talk about some of the questions that you as a prosecutor should ask your officer when they're on the stand. First of all, training at the academy. Where was this training? How long was the training? I think sometimes that jurors believe that officers only have, maybe a day or two. They don't understand that most officers have to go away for months at a time to an academy. So during that time, you want to ask the officer how much time of your academy time was devoted to alcohol and drug detection. And then specifically ask him, did you learn about impaired driving? Did you have live subjects? This is interesting and important to the jury for them to understand that you actually practiced on somebody who was under the influence of alcohol during your training. That it's not just a bunch of hokiness with these field sobriety tests. So that's what wet labs are, when you have live subjects who consume a measured amount of alcohol and they use those at the academy to train the officers. You'll also want to ask your officer that once you graduated from the academy, was there field training? Every officer I've ever spoke to has said that once they graduate from the academy, they are, for a definite period of time, have to ride along with another officer. That's what field training is. And then they slowly integrate that officer into the position of being the head officer in the squad car, and then that officer then takes over and starts to make the DUI investigations on their own. You'll also want to ask about any updated training. Most of the time, if an officer has had, if the officer has been at the academy a while ago, then what happens is their departments will offer updates and new trainings that they can go to so that they can stay fresh. And one of the other questions that is very important to ask an officer under the right circumstances is, how many DUI investigations have you conducted? I would not ask this of an officer if they've only had one or two. Certainly if they're a newer officer, your focus when they're on the witness stand is the recency of their training. But if they've been an officer, if they're a seasoned officer, a veteran officer for say, 10, 12 years, ask them how many times they've had a DUI investigation, because most officers, if they're out on the street in any type of a busy city or town, then they're going to have at least 3, 4, 5 DUIs a year, at least. And if you think of an officer who's been on the department for 10 years, that's going to add up to a substantial number, 40, 50, 60. That's an impressive amount to a jury.